All right. What is up, fellas? We are back tackling a 2024 Dynasty Startup Mock Draft. We are going to be doing this from a Superflex standpoint, a PPR standpoint, half point tight end premium, 6 point per passing touchdowns with a third round reversal. If you're wondering why we're going so galaxy brain with the league settings, it's because I actually have a startup coming up on Friday and I want to get some practice for it, which is why we're doing this live stream. We will, of course, drop the link to the mock draft in the chat on YouTube as well as into our Discord. So if you guys are in our Discord or you want to just get the link from the YouTube chat here, you can join up into the mock draft. We will be drafting kickers as rookie picks. So if you guys want to take 101 Caleb Williams or whatever, we are going to do that. You don't have to specify necessarily what player you're taking, but if you want to, it makes for good fun. You just drop it into the sleeper chat as we do that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Danny, what's up? How you doing?
Doing well. I mean, doing better is probably the better way to put it. Sorry, I just see on my Twitter right now a notification that apparently Cliff Kingsbury is interviewing for the Chicago Bears OC job. So I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that either for anybody involved, whether that's Caleb Williams or Justin Fields. I don't think that that's good news for anybody.
Yeah, for sure. But so for the record, for those of you in the startup right now, once we fill up, we're kind of rigging it. I'm not gonna lie. Corey is picking 10th overall, so I'll just randomize it until he gets 10th. Sorry if you guys really wanted to do a mock draft out of the 10th. We'll do another mock after, but I mean, right now we kind of got to get Corey that practice. So you're at the 110 here. Do I randomize again until you get 110 again?
Yeah, just randomize it until I get 110 again. Hopefully it doesn't take a million tries, but it might take a million tries here. So I'll just stall and talk about what's going on right now. I got the 109, which is close.
2 times in a row.
Yeah, literally. 109 again. There we go. We're going to just keep doing this, and we're just going to laugh at the comedy of me not getting the 110. The one time I want the 110 is when I'm not going to get it.
You've gotten 109 5 times, by the way. There it is. There's the 110.
There we go. There, I got the 110. We're in.
And I'm 111. That's awesome.
All right. So again, if you guys are just joining in here, it's a Dynasty Superflex mock draft. The reason that we rigged it is because I am picking from the 110 in the draft that I'm starting tomorrow. So I kind of want to get some practice in. The rules are listed in the top left corner there. Dynasty Superflex, 1.5 tight end premium, full PPR for the rest of the positions. Third round reversal, which means that at 101 and 212, the draft actually swaps. So after you pick at the 212 from the 1-1 slot, the 301 goes to the person picking from 112. So for me, I'm glad I got the 110 in the actual randomize of the draft order for the league that I'm in, because I prefer to be picking here in a third round reversal. I actually like picking at the end of the first round in 3RR. Some people disagree. And the reason this was implemented in the first place is to balance the Studley asset of like getting Josh Allen and then also getting back-to-back 212 and 301.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And real quick, adding to that, by the way. So with the third round reversal, but did you end up getting it via Derby, or did you just get randomized at 10?
No, it was just randomized draft order. And I think we should, we could probably just hit the start button on this draft. It is 60-second timers. So nobody get fired. And also to, like I mentioned earlier, if you guys are just joining in, if anybody selects a kicker, that is a rookie pick. If you select a kicker and you're in this draft, go to the chat in Sleeper and say, what pick it is. If you want to say the prospect name as well, it's more fun that way. So we can do it that way as well. And then after this stream is over, I'll go through the chat and put in who exactly everybody's picks were in terms of rookie picks. That's what we did last mock draft. I think that worked as a good strategy.
Sounds good. So it looks like everybody is in and ready to go. So I can just hit the start button, and Bo Locks will be on the clock. I believe it's set to 1 minute timer, so be sharp.
Yeah, we got a couple questions in the chat here. We got Wanye, when's the next Dynasty Decisions? Probably next week, I would say, is the next Dynasty Decisions that we're going to do. Jared's egging Danny on, saying, hello, Danny. Glad he us good. How about them Cowboys? Yes, sir. Love to see it. Go Pack, go. Congrats on the win there, Jared, for sure. And I mean, we did actually, I don't know if he remembers, we actually promised him that we would do a free consultation with him because the Packers won. I don't remember. I don't know.
I don't think we ended up agreeing to anything because he never staked anything on the other side for the reference.
That's true. That is true. But I think I did tell him that we would do it. So Ryan actually taking the first kicker off the board again. If you're just joining in here, that is rookie pick. So the 101, I'm assuming he means Caleb Williams with that pick there. That's the highest I've seen Caleb Williams go so far in a startup. Typically, like I personally would not take Caleb Williams ahead of Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. I think the earliest you should probably take him is right about here, where Charms just took Justin Jefferson. So I'm on the board here looking at my actual rankings. It looks like my highest rated player right now is Trevor Lawrence. I don't think I have to take him this high.
Over CD,
but I think
man.
I am going to, because I'm just going to follow my board, to be honest. So,
I mean, I appreciate that because the guy I want anyways is just going to be my own CD Lamb. So I will take him right here.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people are going to look at this and be like, you're still taking Trevor Lawrence at the 110? Like, abso-fucking-lutely I am, dude. The guy was banged up most of the year. Horrible offensive line. Yeah, did he take the step that we were hoping he would take? No, not necessarily. I thought, he was going to be a legit MVP candidate this year, but I still believe wholeheartedly in Trevor Lawrence. I think there's a conversation to be had whether you wanted to go and veer away from Trevor Lawrence for Jamar Chase or for CeeDee Lamb or for another quarterback like Anthony Richardson, maybe Jordan Love, maybe Kyler Murray. I think you could make an argument for all those players, but I still see a 24, 25-year-old quarterback that has the ability to become a top 3 startup pick. So I'm still fine rolling with Trevor Lawrence as a back end of the first. And if you guys are getting him in like the late second, early third, where I'm sure he'll go in some mock drafts or some actual startup drafts, I would consider yourself very, very lucky to get Trevor Lawrence at that kind of value.
Yeah, I have him ranked a little bit lower. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit more concerned, more so to do with the surrounding cast in Jacksonville. Not to mention, if he doesn't have that breakthrough season this upcoming year, you're going to be looking at him going into 26 without having a top 8 or so level season in terms of quarterback ranking. So I'm kind of a little bit concerned in that regard. However, I do believe in the talent like you. I just do think that it has to be baked in a little bit. Like, mid-second round, I'm okay with taking him, but at the 1-2 turn, it's just a little rich for my blood considering the wide receivers there personally. But I'm back on the clock here. I could look at the quarterback position with a guy like Anthony Richardson, and I believe that's where I'm going to be leaning here. Let me just take a look. My highest rated players would be Anthony Richardson and or Kyler Murray. Looks like I got Anthony Richardson to fall back, so I will take him.
Yeah, and I mentioned last time we did a mock draft that I wanted to really limit test this year and take an anchor quarterback and then kind of see where the value lines up for other quarterback options, because this year, as I talked about in that last startup that we did, I think there's way more of a middle class now than there used to be. So I don't really feel the need to get 2 anchor quarterbacks anymore, knowing that the position falls off as hard, because I think it's a little bit deeper than usual. So what I'm going to do here, instead of grabbing, anchor quarterback or whatever as my other option, the 102 went off the board. TKR took that, and he said that was Drake May. So I'm going to take Maserati Marv here at the 203, and we're going to start off our drafts here with Trevor Lawrence and Marvin Harrison Jr. So I feel pretty good about that start, and I love getting 2 young anchors for my team.
Yeah, I wanted to single out this comment. A big shout out to Mikey. If you guys were following the channel earlier on, you guys would know that Mikey was helping us with some content creation. So got to get to his question right off the bat. He needs help with our professional opinions. Deep in as a contender, would you take Olave 208, 25 second, and 26 second for AJ Brown? Okay, so in terms of context here, let's assume it's a 12 person league. In a 1 quarterback league, are you going to be willing to do this? In a super flex, it feels a little expensive, but in a 1 quarterback, which I think Mikey is in, would you be willing to part with this to go get AJ Brown if you're needing the contending piece?
I'm going to use this as an opportunity, as I often do when we have trades asked during this thing, to showcase our trade calculator. So again, if you guys have not seen this before, Dynasty Trade Calculator live on Flock Fantasy right now. Let's assume it's a 12-team, standard kind of super flex.
I think it's a 1 quarterback league, if I remember, Mikey.
Yeah, it might be a 1 quarterback league. I think he does play in a lot of those. So we're going to say it's a 1 quarterback league instead. He's receiving here Olave.
AJ Brown. He's getting AJ Brown. He would be giving up the Olave side.
Okay. All right. So we'll give him AJ, and it's Olave 208, a 25 second, and a 26 second. I mean, I probably don't have to put this into the trade calculator. I would probably take Chris Olave in the picks, to be honest, but
probably a second too rich at least.
Yeah,
I would say.
Mid to late fuck, I'm just literally butchering this right now. I don't want to get too late on this.
You're good.
Mid second, and then a mid second in 2025 as well.
Yep.
It's really gonna do this to me. I can't type. Don't mind me.
Yeah, you're good. Just type in mid. Should be fine.
There we go. And then 2026. I don't know if we have 26 picks in here yet, to be honest. But anyways, even without the 26 pick, it says it's a fair trade right now. I personally would probably lean on the side of Olave in the picks there.
Yeah, not to mention that also says that's also missing the 2026, like you said. So that's about what I would have said as well. If you could shave off a 2, maybe change a 2 into like a 4 and that type of deal. So 2 2s and a 4. One quarterback, I think I'd be willing to pay that, assuming that those picks are probably in the later portion. But aside from that, I mean, I'm still really high on Olave. I still view him as a top 8 to 10 overall wide receiver in Dynasty. So I don't know if I'd be willing to pay too much, considering the fact that, I mean, AJ Brown, he's voiced his concern. Maybe he's not an Eagle next year. Like, there's still uncertainty, especially to the point of making that type of deal now. If that's an opportunity mid-season next year, AJ Brown's another mid-end wide receiver 1 season, Olave still a wide receiver 2, and you want to pay for the production, then I think it's fine. But in the offseason, I'm just going to value the liquidity and take the picks.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last thing I want to showcase, we actually relocated our trade finder. So if you go to our site and you see trade here, we have the trade calculator and now the trade finder. It used to all be in one tab, but for less confusion purposes, if you guys are curious, like say you were a contender this year, you won the championship, you're trying to tear it down, and you're like, hey, I don't think Kyron Williams is the same like guy this next year, and you want to see what you can get for him, you can type in, say, Kyron Williams and look at the sleeper database basically to see all the trades that have been made involving Kyron Williams. You can be like, oh, this guy got a 2024 first round pick for Kyron Williams. This guy got a 2025 first round pick. This guy traded Christian McCaffrey for Kyron Williams in the 2025 one. So you can use that if you guys, like we get questions all the time. Hey, I'm trying to rebuild. I'm trying to sell this player. What should I be looking to get for him? Using the trade finder is definitely something that you can use to your advantage if you're looking to sell off on some of your older veterans, especially.
Yeah, I agree.
Ryan says 101 trade bait / Caleb Williams. So yeah, by the way, Ryan or anybody else that's in this draft, if you actually select a rookie pick, make sure to drop it in the sleeper chat specifically. Cause when I go back through and put this in the comment section, that's where I'm going to be looking to do that. So make sure if you draft a kicker for a rookie pick, make sure you're doing it there. Wyatt says 101 or Trevor Lawrence and Puka. I would personally take Trevor Lawrence and Puka. That is a pretty sizable return for the 101. Where are you at on that decision?
Or T-Law and Puka. So I mean, you're looking at Caleb Williams for T-Law and Puka in a start 11 league. I'm assuming this is going to be a super flex. If this is a 1 quarterback league, you're keeping Marv, right? Or how are you evaluating this in a 1 quarterback?
Yeah, in a 1 quarterback league, I think I would take Marvin, but in a super flex league, he didn't specify it was super flex, but he did say start 11, which would be a very deep 1 quarterback league. So I'm assuming it is super flex, but if it isn't super flex, I think I would take Marvin. If it is super flex, I like Trevor Lawrence and Puka
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. It's basically evaluating there. Again, we're still higher on Trevor Lawrence. Like I as I said, from a risk mitigation standpoint, you probably value him. In my opinion, I would value him closer. Oh, I'm on the clock, by the way. We were talking. Okay, let me make a pick then, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. I was writing in the players. Can you pause it for a second?
You're the leader of this, dude.
Oh, fuck me. Okay.
Fired. You're auto drafting.
Sure. We'll do AJ Brown. I don't give a shit. Yeah, I was actually fucking. I'm gonna take
just change it if you want a different player.
You're
the leader of this.
Sorry, I was going through the picks on who was selected, and I was looking at this trade. I would take T-Law and Puka in a start 11 Superflex league. Is basically where I was hinting.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so thank you for doing that, Danny, because now I get AJ Brown, who I'm gonna actually make the selection here. The conversation point for me on the board would be like, I think there's a big time tier break at quarterback to the point that I'm really going to punt it. Once Fields and Murray and Jordan Love and Dak and those guys are off the board, there's really no reason, in my opinion, to reach for Tua Tagovailoa. No offense, Charms. I just don't think he's that much better of a value over replacement than some of the guys that I'm going to get later on. So I would rather just punt the quarterback position. I got Marvin Harrison and AJ Brown to build my wide receiver core around. I could have went with Malik Neighbors if I wanted to, and grabbed the 104. But honestly, I do slightly prefer AJ Brown. If AJ was off the board, it probably would have been a conversation point between like Chris Olave and Puka Nacua if he's available. He's actually been taken already. But yeah, that would be kind of the conversation point. That's if you guys are wondering, like, where does Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors fit in among our dynasty wide receiver rankings? For me, that Olave, Puka Nacua, AJ Brown area is kind of where I see Malik Neighbors. And then right after the top 3 guys is where I see Marvin.
Yeah, so for reference there, I ended up going with Prescott. Based on my face value rankings, I would prefer to take AJ Brown, 19th versus 23rd overall player. But understanding the dynamic of the room, understanding they're the same tier, I feel like the wide receiver I'll get back at the 411, I would prefer better than Dak, or the quarterback that would get back there. So from a bundle standpoint, I would just rather get Prescott and then maybe like a guy like Brandon Ayuk versus AJ Brown and be left, with a Bryce Young or with a Deshaun Watson or with someone like that. So that was basically the decision point there. AJ Brown would have been in contention. And then obviously some of the other guys like Jordan Love, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, Puka Nacua, et cetera. And then of course, running backs would have also been in contention for me.
Yeah, for sure. That makes some sense. Good question here from Daniel. He says, is Jamar Chase a buy low? Value is slowly dropping. I would say, it's good to keep an eye on elite assets and which guys are kind of on the upslope and the downslope. And Jamar Chase, because of the season he had, Joe Burrow being injured, like none of this was predictable. Nothing is really Jamar Chase's fault that happened this year. And absolutely his value has taken a slight downtick, not a lot, 10%, 15%. But it's giving you enough of a window that, especially if you guys are like a house money team, you're ready to turn it into a full-blown contender. You got like a war chest of picks, and you're just looking to buy on elite assets. Going after a guy like Jamar Chase makes way more sense to me than buying on CeeDee Lamb, who is on the upswing right now. Like, you might as well just get the guy that's in the same tier for probably a cheaper price tag who has a similar outlook.
Yeah, like if there's like a second difference of value between them, just give me Jamar in the second of value. Like if they're valued similarly, I really do think it's a pick your poison for the top three guys. But like I said, if you can get like a second or even like a third of a tag on to move from one to the other, because Chase, obviously, like Corey said, downswing of the year, CeeDee Lamb, obviously his big breakout year, I don't mind that. And you mentioned Jamar's value. This is a really interesting trade that Matt proposed in the chat. 102 and Chase for Mahomes. So if you're looking at it straight from a startup pick value standpoint, the guy at the 112 is going to offer you his 112 and his 201 in exchange for your 102. This is tough, man. This is really tough. I think I would, but at the same time, Drake and Chase, like if Drake was a guaranteed hit, like this would obviously be a smash.
Well, you could also just take Marvin with that and go with the two wideouts.
Yeah, you could do that too. If you're a good spot at quarterback, I don't hate that, but man, it's
presumably you're selling the 102 because you don't want a quarterback. And if you were to take Jamar Chase and Marvin, you're probably behind the 8 ball at that position. So it does make sense to go Chase and Drake if you wanted to.
Yeah, I was more so talking from the other perspective. If you had Patrick Mahomes and somebody offered this to you, like it becomes a lot more unclear, I would say. Like if you're offering this for Mahomes, that'd be one thing. If you're getting offered this for Mahomes, it would be the other thing, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's a good way of kind of depicting how we feel about selling on elite quarterbacks. It's like, would I buy Mahomes for this? Potentially. Like, I think this is, probably what he's worth. But would I sell Mahomes for this is like a different question. Even though it's the same asset on either side of the deal, you want a slight plus when you're selling these elite quarterbacks, and you want to pay what they're worth when you're buying these elite quarterbacks, or ideally in an ideal world, you're paying less than what they're worth. But let's say you're in a sharper league and that's not really possible. For me, like I put it in the chat earlier today, Danny, you noticed that I put CJ Stroud on the block in our no flocking league. And the reason I did that is because my team is pretty weak at wide receiver. And I'm like, hey, let's see what people are offering me. Do I want to sell CJ Stroud? Absolutely not. I have Josh Allen and CJ Stroud, best quarterback duo probably in our entire league. But if somebody's willing to give me an overpay on CJ Stroud, I'm not going to say no to that given my team situation. But at the same time, people are giving me offers that like seem fair. Like I think Sir King Jared offered me like Devontae Smith and Brock Purdy, which seems fair, but it's not enough for me to be like, and I told them, I'm like, dude, I might not even do this even if you threw in your 2025 first. Like, that's just how I feel about CJ Stroud. That's how I feel about rostering elite quarterbacks in general, is like, if you're going to blow me away and you're going to give me a Godfather offer for an elite quarterback, sure. But I'm not going to sell them for what they're worth.
No, exactly. Like I would always need a premium to move off of an elite quarterback. Like you can't sell for fair market value because you know that trying to get them off of someone else is going to be almost impossible in most circumstances. So you either have them or you don't. That's kind of where it's at with these quarterbacks. Yes, they're an elite luxury, but at the same time, if you don't have one, good luck getting one. It's kind of where I'm
absolutely. At. And Tyler Bass and Younghoe Koo, for what it's worth, was Jaden Daniels and Romo Dunze, the 105 and the 106 respectively. And then Kaiser took Daniel Carlson, which was Malik Neighbors. We got 107 off the board. I'm assuming that's Brock Bowers.
We'll see. Be Brock. Yeah.
Yeah, it is Bowers. Okay, so
07.
interesting that that Pitts went off the board before McBride and Bowers. For me, I would value Bowers as the tight end too in
Agreed.
Dynasty right about now. That's personally how I value him. The only guy I would take
Hey.
over him is Sam Laporta.
I think you can make the case that he could be one if he lands with the Chargers, man. Honestly, like I'm looking at it and like I don't want to. That's not even discrediting anything that Laporta's done because he's clearly worth having that tight end one label. But if I'm looking at it, what he was able to do in college, yards after catch per reception, top 5 draft capital, very good landing spot long term to be the number 1 pass catcher for Justin Herbert. Like it'd be tough for me not to rank him 1. But I'm not going to talk too much more. You are on the clock with 20 seconds. Where are you leaning?
I don't love the board right now. I'll be honest. The quarterback position, I'm not really looking there. I don't think there's a good enough value on the board. I think Mark Andrews is maybe one of the better players available. Wide receiver has kind of dried up significantly. What I'm actually going to end up doing here is going with Brandon Ayuk, who is my highest rated wide receiver on the board. He kind of represented like a slight tier break. I think if I go to my rankings right now, I have at wide receiver in Dynasty, I have Brandon Ayuk as like a tail end wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. He's like my wide receiver 10, I think. And he's within a tier of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith, all of whom I believe are off the board already. And then there's like right after that tier, there's a big, massive tier of guys like Drake London and DJ Moore and, Michael Pittman Jr. and those type of guys.
Oh, that hurt, man. That was going to be my pick. Reevaluating now, there's a couple still wide receivers that I really left. Where is his name? I will go with Nico Collins. I think this is about the spot where he finds himself. 4 or 5 turn area, still a soon to be 25-year-old wide receiver. Big time breakout year. Chemistry with CJ Stroud. Obviously, CJ Stroud still on his rookie deal. No, sign me up. I think Nico Collins could realistically be a 2nd round redraft type of pick, especially with how he finished off this season with Stroud. And I mean, who knows? We could be potentially even seeing more for the rest of the playoff run. So love Nico Collins there. Now I think I'm going to grab a running back if the board lets me. Is this guy on the board? Yes, he is. I will go with Devon Achane.
Yeah, that's a good option there. So let me ask you this question, because I think a lot of people are going to be like, how the hell do you sort through the cluster of Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, DJ Moore, Drake London, the older guys, Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill, Jordan Addison, Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, JSN, Zay Flowers, Nico Collins, Michael Pittman Jr. Is there a definitive, like, there's any kind of tier break between those guys to you? Or are they kind of just like, whatever you're looking for, pick your poison? Like, do some of the earlier guys that I say like belong in a tier ahead of them, I guess is what I'm asking.
Sorry. So after like AJ Brown and Olave, once you get into the Waddles.
So for me, like wide receiver 9 through 13 is Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and DJ Moore. But then like Nico Collins, who you just selected, is kind of in that next tier down with a bunch of other guys that are similar, including the one that I'm about to select right now in T. Higgins.
Yes. So I prefer
all of those guys are kind of similar to me.
They're very similar. The reason why I gravitate towards Collins, so currently he is listed, I believe, as including rookie picks. So once we factor out rookie picks, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's my wide receiver 14 in Dynasty at this current point. So the reason being there, he's a little bit younger than a guy like Michael Pittman. Plus, I believe in the passing ceiling a little bit more with Collins quarterback versus Pittman, as much as I like A-Rich. Rashee Rice would be right in that midst as well. I feel like Nico Collins a little bit more proven. Tank Dell, injury concern there, kind of why I prefer Collins, but I think you can make the case for either Houston Texan receiver being there. T. Higgins would be up there as well, but I am a little bit concerned. Contract looming. Don't really know in terms of the quarterback certainty. If he's locked in with Joe Burrow, I think you can make the case of him over Nico. But because you have that long-term security of Nico with Stroud, and because, I mean, realistically, if we're comparing peaks, T. Higgins probably slightly higher peak, but Nico Collins had nearly 1,300 yards and missed 2 games this year. So if we're projecting forward, building that chemistry with CJ Stroud, I wouldn't be shocked if Nico Collins ended up just being a better version of T. Higgins.
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with all of these guys. Like, I technically have a tier break listed from like my wide receiver 9, Tyreek Hill, to my wide receiver 13, DJ Moore. Like, those guys I have listed ahead of Nico Collins, who's at 15 for me, and Jordan Addison and T. Higgins. But like, I might just eliminate that tier altogether, because I honestly don't feel all that differently about any of these guys. I think there's a bunch of dynasty wide receiver 2s like that. There's just a lot of guys that profile as wide receiver 2s. And I actually only think there's about 7 or 8 wide receiver 1s, which kind of balances it out. And that's why there's like a cluster of 11 or 12 guys.
So for what it's worth, Tyreek Hill is my wide receiver 9 in Dynasty right now. T. Higgins is my wide receiver 18. Tyreek Hill is my 35th overall player. T. Higgins is my 50th overall player. So you're looking at the
Yeah, so
difference between wide
startup
receiver.
value, I mean, it's showing up in this draft. Like you see between, the 312 Tyreek Hill and the 5'8 Rashee Rice, like that's a 15 to 18 pick discrepancy, and like a shit ton of wide receivers came off the board in that period of time.
Daniel Crouch just said sleeper just booted me and I can't get in. What?
I
I
personally
can
never seen something like that happen. I don't know, maybe refresh your page or
you
something.
refresh. He said he's good now. Okay.
Okay. Mystic Flame asks here in the chat, Superflex 12 teams, start 11. I traded 109 and 111 for A.J. Brown. Wide receivers are now Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, JSN, Reed, Downs, Dotson. Good trade. I mean, when you're going to load up your wide receiver core with a bunch of studs, 109 and 111, I mean, you're probably talking about, let's say, the 2 Texas wide receivers, Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell or something like that, or Brian Thomas and Troy Franklin, like whatever wide receivers you kind of value in that area. Maybe RB1 comes off the board in that area as well. I'm okay with that for AJ Brown. I think that's probably a decent trade. I maybe would have wanted just give me a dart throw early 3rd rounder on top of AJ Brown just to make it kind of interesting. But at the same time, I don't think if you're in a position to win, I think this is fine.
Yeah, feels a little bit pricey, but if you're in a position to win, I don't hate it. The way I kind of evaluate this is, like you said, I'm higher on a guy like Brian Thomas than you are. If he gets 1st round draft capital and he's there at the 109, it would be really tough for me to make this type of deal. But at the same time, if you're competing, I mean, they're still unproven assets. Don't hate it. Just feels a little bit rich giving up 2 1st round picks for AJ Brown at this point, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Jared says, Danny, thoughts on McCarthy coming back?
If Dan Quinn comes back as well, I might just chalk up the 2024 season and look into the 2025 cycle. I'm not gonna lie. Like Dan Quinn's defense is so outdated against smart offensive coordinators at this point, to the point where you get him on a little bit of motion and you get him out of his natural man, then you're going to be able to score points. And we saw that against the Packers in spades in that playoff game. I mean, how many guys were wide open down the field? How many times are you trying to run zone when you clearly haven't shown the technique throughout the season? You've been a man-heavy team all year. You want to switch it for a playoff game? I don't know what was going on there. Dan Quinn looked lost. It really looked like Matt LaFleur had him out of his comfort zone. And if an offensive tree, which is the Shanahan tree, is able to do that against Dan Quinn basically every single time they play, that says a lot more about Dan Quinn than it does about the style of offense you're trying to stop, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's well said for sure.
Not to mention the other thing real quick, the performance drop-off has been really dramatic, I've noticed, in the last 2 years. So a couple years ago, we noticed that they were pretty much a relatively consistent defense, albeit a high turnover prone one, no matter what, a couple years ago. This past year, when they were playing against Shanny Tree type of offenses, high leverage type of offenses, you really saw Dan Quinn exposed. And when the word is out on how to beat your defense, you're never going to reclaim that elite status. Like, I'm sorry, it just can't happen.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Cats took over, says 12-team Superflex traded Swift and Addison for London and Jonathan Taylor. I don't know how you pulled that off, because I prefer both individual assets by a tier, to be honest. Like, I think London's a tier ahead of Addison in dynasty rankings, and JT is probably 3 tiers ahead of DeAndre Swift at this point. That is a monster W for you there.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith says, great to catch you guys live. If Bowers goes to the Chargers, Bengals without T. Higgins, I mean, he's not going to make it to Cincinnati unless they trade it up, or the Jets in 2 PPR and 3 PPR for tight end leagues, would you take him at the 101? Okay, that's a very intricate question. I would say it's probably too high in 3 PPR for tight end leagues. Yeah, probably. But 2 PPR, I think I would probably rate him as like 103, 104.
Yep.
Okay. I'm on the board here. Let's see what I got. I think George Pickens is a decent option here at wide receiver. At running back, I'm not a huge fan of any of these guys. I'm kind of at a position where I could probably pivot to a contender if I wanted to, given just I have a bunch of great wide receivers, all of whom are in their prime. So I might actually end up doing that. I might see how it goes. And there's a guy that absolutely should not be on the board. I cannot believe 7 or 8 tight ends have been taken already, and Mark Andrews is still here. What are we doing, fellas?
Oh, I'm not too happy.
What are we doing, fellas? This is, and again, this is exactly why you want to set up your teams the way that I've set up mine, which is, round 1, I go Trevor Lawrence. Round 2, I go Marvin Harrison. At that point, I can go contender, I can go rebuilder. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing. And I got good value on AJ Brown. I got good value on Brandon Ayuk. I think T Higgins was good value. And then I get a fucking elite tight end that falls to me at the end of the 6th round. This is why you stay fluid and you stay flexible, because you let the board dictate kind of what your strategy is going to be.
Yeah, now I got to figure out my strategy because that was my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think given that you're a little weaker at wide receiver, I think George Pickett's a pretty easy smash for me in this spot. I think this is about the range that he should come off.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I would have rather.
I mean, you do
had
have to
Andrews.
dig a little bit deeper for some of these names too, because the sleeper ADP is kind of not up to date. Like, I don't know, did Jaden Reed? Yeah, Jaden Reed went off the board already. I was gonna say, like, somebody like that might be buried in the ADP.
Yeah, like the other wide receiver, I mean, Zay Flowers off the board, Debo was off the board, DK was off the board, Jaden Reed was off the board. So Pickens would have been my highest ranked receiver. I currently have him ranked as my 59th overall startup player. So if we're doing the math here, we're at the end of the 6th round, more than adequate value. It's just, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Mark Andrews would have been lovely. And
yeah,
before,
I mean, Charms, by the way, I'm going to pick a bone with him just because, in my opinion, JSN over Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Michael Pittman Jr., and T. Higgins is absolutely egregious. Like, that is, like, I like JSN, don't get me wrong. Over those guys, to me, that's just way too far. I think if you want to say JSN's a top 20 to 15 wide receiver in Dynasty still because you love the prospect and he still has a good outlook, that's fair. But, like, I mean, we're talking about, like, legit studs who are his age, too.
By the way, you mentioned tight end falling, and I think this is the spot for George Kittle as well. Just a solid value, especially getting ahead of the curve here, knowing that a couple other contending type of teams like Xavier, like Chan, like I don't know, like Daniel Krause, like Bolocks, like a lot of these teams still don't have a tight end. So getting ahead of the curve there, knowing that the value fall off is going to come by my next pick, I don't mind.
Yeah, and I did actually end up kind of pivoting to like a win now strategy when I took Mark Andrews there. So I think what I'm going to end up doing,
Stafford?
I'm gonna punt quarterback one more time because I do kind of actually, you know what? There is one guy on the board that I think is probably a tier break, and that's Will Levis. So I'm gonna grab Will Levis here and hope that I can get maybe another older quarterback to kind of pair him with, so that if he's not producing right away, I can maybe pivot to it. I don't know. To me, Will Levis, I view him as somebody that people should be willing to build around still. Like, I don't think he's somebody that you need to like be scared of necessarily. But you know, I mean, the rookie picks are also still only the 109 has been taken most recently. So I think the rookie picks are going to start to fly off the board here because this is probably about the range that they need to be starting to fly off the board because of how good this class is.
Funny enough, I actually considered a rookie pick where I took George Kittle as well. I was considering taking the 109, but I just thought contending shell, too much value to pass up, especially in a 1.5 premium to take George Kittle there. So I went with that.
Yeah, definitely makes some sense there. Yeah, I mean, looking at this board, does anything stick out to you? Like, I think based on what I said earlier, maybe I influenced this a little bit. I expected more quarterbacks to kind of go in the 3rd to 4th round area, and like very few
they're falling pretty
off the board. They're falling a little bit.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense. 110 was just selected off the board, I believe, there too. I'm sure that's, you know, Brian Thomas or somebody like that, I would imagine.
So the 109 was Bo Nix. 108 was Keon Coleman, and then Xavier just took the 110, which I'm assuming is probably going to be a wide receiver.
Maybe it's Penix. Who knows? He says
Brian
Thomas. So
Brian Thomas, yeah.
Connor says, in a rebuild, I got offered Olave, Mayer, Dotson, and a 2025 second for Puka, Pitts, and the 2024 305. Okay, so Olave for Puka is a wash, in my opinion, so I'll just cancel those guys out.
Yeah, I agree.
Mayer, Dotson, and a second for Pitts and a 305. I think honestly, call me crazy on Pitts. This is kind of how far we've come with him. I would rather have Mayer, Dotson, and a second than Pitts in the 305. I don't think there should be a massive difference between Michael Mayer and Kyle Pitts, to be honest.
I think there should be at this point.
There's a difference. I would prefer Pitts, but I don't think it's a massive difference. And second is pretty decent.
Yeah. I don't know. If you have a lot of picks, I don't mind going and splurging on a guy like Kyle Pitts, but it's pretty much a wash.
Yeah, I mean, Dotson's about to get Drake May as his quarterback, so.
For sure. And I like Dotson a lot. Dotson about a 2 in value, 2025 second about a 2. So basically Mayer and 2 2s for Pitts in the 3. That's about the going rate. But again, if I'm willing to consolidate and buy a better asset, in my opinion, with Pitts, I don't mind doing that.
Well, and I
That's a
also
fair
think
deal.
you can make the argument that Puka is better than Olave too.
Yeah, I would agree there. I have
I
that
view
right
them
that way too.
basically the same, but I think you can make the argument that there's maybe a small difference between them.
Yeah.
Troy Franklin was the 111 that just came off the board as Jason Myers there.
Yeah.
RVL says, starting my first Dynasty League this year as a commish, would you guys add some extra rounds to the startup draft if we're including rookies? I would say, yeah. Like, I mean, if you're going to add in kickers, kind of like what we're doing here, and you wanted 25 roster spots to begin with, maybe do 30 roster spots in the startup draft, and then,
so
whatever. Like, I mean, the kickers are placeholders, right? So you don't want it to be like a wave to free agency after the kickers are dropped and you add in the rookie picks and set the draft order. So I would say, yeah, maybe leave yourself a little bit of extra room at the bottom. And if you're doing your first ever Dynasty League, definitely check out our Dynasty for Beginners video that we did about 2 weeks ago.
Yep, I agree. I'm gonna pin this, by the way, in the chat. Can I even pin something in the chat? No, I guess I can't.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. So regardless, though, I was just gonna say, in terms of you who are concerned about where the rookie picks ended up, so the 101 Caleb Williams, 102 Drake May, 103 Marvin Harrison Jr., 104 Malik Neighbors, 105 Jaden Daniels, 106 Romo Dunze, 107 Brock Bowers, 108 Keon Coleman, 109 Bo Nix, 110 Brian Thomas, and 111 Troy Franklin is where we're caught up, if you guys are curious.
Yep. Mystic says Superflex 12 team start 11, Tank Dell in the 203 or the 109 and 111. I think I would take Tank Dell in the 203. The way I look at this is I don't think there's a huge difference between 203 and 109 and 111, just even despite like, what people might think. Like, I honestly think that's the difference between Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas. Like, it's not.
And you prefer Ladd?
I actually prefer Ladd McConkey. Yeah. So, I think Tank Dell is the best asset in this deal. Not by a whole lot. I would say he's probably worth about the 108, given the tier break drop off of this class at 107. But yeah, I think I slightly prefer Tank Dell side there.
The only concern I might add there is that's under the basis right now that we're assuming 3 quarterbacks go in the first round. Like, if a fourth goes in the first round and we get some dropping value, the answer could change by the time the draft rolls around.
That's true, but you could also say that to the other side. What if Jaden Daniels doesn't go in the first round? We only get 2 quarterbacks in the first round.
Fair. I think it's more likely we get 4 than we get 2, though. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think that's a outrageous take there.
Speaking of Ladd, Ladd goes here at the 112. So let me go update the board right now. Mr. Ladd McConkey.
Mr. Smith says, also, if people have multiple early 2024 firsts, say the 101 and the 103, 104, 105, thoughts on taking Marv at the 101 and seeing what quarterback falls to you on your other pick? It's a Dynasty Superflex start 10. I would say, for starters, in a 12-team league, I probably wouldn't do this. If it's a 10-team league, it's a little bit more stomachable because then the quarterbacks lose a little bit of value. I don't hate this idea. Like, you're fine with Drake May versus Caleb Williams, so you're just going to take Drake May at 103. Hypothetically, let's say you have 101 and 103, and you want to make sure you get Marvin. You don't want him going 102.
Now, the question
I think that's fine, but I would still reach out to the person with 102 and find out what they're doing. Just inquire. Be like, hey, do you have any lenience between Marvin Harrison, Caleb Williams, and Drake May? They might be like, you know what? I really want Caleb Williams. And then you could be like, hey, you know what? I'm actually kind of leaning towards Marvin anyway. Like, I like to be very transparent in trade discussions. Like, maybe that's a stupid strategy and people might take advantage of that. But you have the fallback plan in this situation that you can just take Marvin 101. So what I would probably do is be like, hey, for 101, 10 as well, giving me a tiny sweetener. Like, I love this third-year receiver that you have on your bench. Or whatever, or give me a late second or something like that. You move up to 101, I move down to 102.
Yeah, or you could just do the inverse. You can just take Caleb Williams at the 101, but before you actually end up making the pick, say, hey, listen, like, I do want Marv here. And again, you're going to be able to spot the context. Like, if this guy's quarterback core is complete buns, then maybe you don't even have to trade up from 103 to 102. If he's in a position where maybe he's got a couple nice quarterbacks, but he needs a wide receiver, at that point, you can basically say, hey, listen, I have the 104 here and I wanted to move up to the 102, or I have the 103 here and I wanted to move up to the 102. Like, what would the sweetener cost? I think no matter what you play this, you're in a good spot because you do have 3 picks between the 103 and the 105 along with the 101. Like, you could play some matchmaker here. You can say, hey, listen, like, you see what picks I have here. Do you want a wide receiver? Do you want a quarterback? Because if you want a wide receiver, you can trade down to the 103, 104 here and still get Malik Neighbors. You want a quarterback? Trade down to the 103 so I can get Marvin Harrison. Just play to his needs.
Yeah, and I think worst case scenario, gun to my head, am I comfortable just saying at 103 I'll take whatever quarterback falls because I want Marvin and I'm going to take him 101? I think that would be the one instance where I would be okay with taking Marvin 101, knowing that you have 103 also, and you're going to get Drake May or
I'd
Jaden
agree.
Daniels, whatever quarterback you view as the QB2.
Yeah, I would agree with that logic.
Okay, so I'm on the board here again. I do have a lot of wide receivers on my team already. I do have Will Levis already as well. I don't. Do I love the running backs right now? I don't really, to be honest. I was gonna say I actually don't mind the running backs, but like also I kind of don't
like them at
them
all.
either at the same time. So I was hoping that maybe a quarterback would slide to me. A couple did, so I'm not even really pressured to take one yet.
Me neither.
I'm actually going to take a rookie pick and take a flyer on a prospect here. So Ryan took the 201, which was a Michael Penix Jr. I am going to take the 202, which I believe my boy ain't off the board, so I'm going to go Xavier Worthy at 202.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go with the 203 and take his teammate. So you got the kicker, and I'm also going to go with the kicker. You just mentioned Xavier Worthy. I will go with A.D. Mitchell.
Yep. Waffle Houser says 110 and 101 for the 103. Or no, is that 101? 110 and 1 ... 1
and a
111
future first. Maybe? 110 and 111 maybe. I mean, if it's the 110 and the 111, I'm taking the 103. Like with
I think I'm okay with that if it's the 110 and the 111. I would maybe like if you guys are willing to do this trade, would I be willing to do 110 and 111 for 103 straight up? Yes, but your first trade offer that you should send should be 110 and 111 for 103 and a 2025 second. That's what I would send as my first trade offer and see what they say. If they're like that's too much to give up, then you concede and go, "Hey, I'll do 110 and 111 straight up."
Okay. Yeah.
That's just the way that I offer trades. Like I like to offer trades that I believe are fair, but at the same time, I'm not going to offer them my best offer the first try.
No, I get that. And it's like, that's how trade sequencing goes, how negotiating goes. If you throw your fastball on your first pitch, then they're going to key into that and they're going to try to juice you for as much as possible. If you can change it up a little bit and you can say, hey, like mentally, you know, the max you're willing to go. And even if that's a slightly above market price, you're willing to go that far. Because at the end of the day, you're trading for players for the most part in Dynasty that you have ahead of their market price, right? You're not just going to trade for someone just to trade for someone. It's because you view them as a value. So if you're willing to pay market price on your initial offer, knowing that you'd be willing to go 15%, 20% extra, that should always be your starting point. But I'm on the clock here, 25 seconds left. We do see Jonathan Brooks go off the board as the RB1. Now I'm kind of in a tough spot. I could go with like a contending wide receiver here, or I can just go with a rookie pick or a running back. I mean, I'm just going to take a quarterback here. I'm just going to go with Matthew Stafford. Is he available? Is he not? What? Oh, I see him. Okay. I'll go with Matthew Stafford. I do have a contending shell. Get my quarterback 3. I think the 902, although he doesn't really have the longevity working in his factor, is a nice price for Matthew Stafford. I can lean upon him as a top 15, top 12 level quarterback when he's healthy.
Yeah, fuck you, dude. That's what I was going to do. 100%.
I mean, you snipe me in a couple other spots.
That's what I was aiming for. I'm going to go with a rookie pick here. I'm going to take the 205, and I'm going to take RB2 off the board and go with Trey Benson. So I'll go 205 Trey Benson there.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of exposed who's available, but I mean, we might get a 206 JJ McCarthy at this point.
Yeah, Johnny Brooks went off the board right before me. I would have gone with him. I think he's probably going to end up being my RB1. I have not graded the running back class yet, so don't quote me on that. But I will say I do love me some Trey Benson. Ramondre Stevenson was still on the board too. He is actually probably, if I went with a veteran running back, that's probably who I would have gone with.
That's the only problem too. You got to be very attentive in these boards because like there's still a lot of mess before Sleeper cleans it up a lot.
So, yeah, for sure. There's tons that you could 100% miss if you're not looking around here.
Yeah, I mean, like
Purdy value right now. Yeah, I think where did Purdy go? He went at the 301 in this draft. I think that's exactly what you want. Like, I mean, if you grab a Brock Purdy type as your quarterback 2 on like this is a 3rd round reversal draft, but let's say it wasn't a 3rd round reversal and you grab Josh Allen and then you get like a stud wide receiver or something, and then you grab Brock Purdy as your second quarterback. I think that's such money to start off a draft to set yourself up well. Or you could also grab an anchor running back too and grab a Gibbs or a Hall or a Bijan if they're there at the 212. Or hypothetically you're picking like 1-3, 1-4. You could always do the same thing.
Yep. I would agree. So far, looking at the team, do have Anthony Richardson, Devon Achane, CeeDee Lamb, Nico Collins, George Pickens, George Kittle. Dak Prescott is my main shell. My kicker, I believe that rookie pick, if I remember correctly, was A.D. Mitchell. So you figure in him as one of the flex spots. And then Matthew Stafford is a quarterback 3. Typically like getting these type of builds. Your 2 quarterbacks relatively early for me. Getting a veteran option like Matthew Stafford as your quarterback 3 is typically how I like it.
Yeah, and so far I've gone in my draft with Trevor Lawrence as my main quarterback, A.J. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins as my main veteran wide receivers, and I took Maserati Marv there at the 202 or 203, whatever it was. I get a great value on Mark Andrews. I got a great value, I think, on Will Levis as well. And then I grab 2 young players there with Xavier Worthy and with Trey Benson with those rookie picks.
Yep. No, like what you're able to do. By the way, until Sleeper adds the rookies, unfortunately, we can't do rookie mock drafts. But as soon as that's added in, we will definitely be spamming a lot of those because, what's more fun than just ripping off a nice little rookie mock, eh?
Yeah, for sure. If you don't mind, Danny, when you're not on the clock, do you mind just like minimizing the board there so that people can see everything?
Yeah.
Jared says won the championship, 10-team dynasty, 1 quarterback, have 1-1, 1-3, 1-5, and 1-8. I feel like Jared asks us this question just to like flex that he won the championship and also has 3 of the top 5 rookie picks and 4 of the top 8 wide receivers. Pittman, Dubs, DJ Moore, Wicks, Quinton. Is getting Neighbors, Harrison, and Rome overkill? Absolutely not. I would be ecstatic if that's what you ended up doing. In a 1 quarterback league, if you get Neighbors at 103, somebody's throwing. I don't know who's doing it, but Neighbors should be the 102.
Maybe it's because someone takes Bowers
there at 105.
I was going to say, like, Bowers can only fill one of those spots. So even if you assume Bowers was going the 102, like, yeah, you get Neighbors at 3. Who the hell's going at 104 over Rome Odunze? Is like a quarterback going? Like, is someone taking a second round running back?
Or somebody's obsessed with Jonathan Brooks or something.
Like, that would be pretty wild. The one caveat I will have is maybe if you, like, hypothetically, you start Marv and you start Neighbors. The 105 at that point, it's like, I have no problem.
You got a championship roster. I would sell that pick for sure.
That's what I'm implying, right? Like if you have to pick there, absolutely take Rome. But if you're in a position where somebody's willing to offer you like a big needle moving running back for that pick, like what if somebody's willing to offer you Devon Achane for that pick?
Yeah. Or, I mean, you could also take that 105 plus Dontavian Wicks and like a second rounder and see if that gets you up to a better wide receiver. Like maybe you can go DJ Moore and so maybe you could go DJ Moore in the 105 for Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I mean, if you could do that, that's absolutely a smash. And a 1 quarterback, it might be hard to do something like that. Maybe, like, would you do that for Amon-Ra?
I think I would maybe want a small quarterback back, but yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it too.
What side y'all like? I think Flet just made this trade. AJ Brown, Adams, Cousins, Pacheco, or A-Rich 109 Pickens. Okay, so
let's cancel some stuff out. So A-Rich plus Pickens equals AJ Brown, Adams, Cousins.
Honestly, however I slice this, I think I want the A-Rich side.
That's kind of where I'm at now.
I think Richardson, AJ Brown, like Richardson for AJ Brown, Pacheco, and Cousins is probably equivalent value for Richardson. To be honest,
then Adams and then it's versus Pickens.
Yeah, or like I think maybe 109 and Adams cancel each other out, and then it's AJ Brown, Cousins, and Pacheco for A-Rich and Pickens.
Yeah. Again, value-wise, I think I lean the A-Rich side, but knowing the context that A-Rich is your quarterback 3, and I believe his top 2 are Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, I think his top 2 are, and he's willing to contend next year. Maybe you would have wanted a little piece back, but I don't hate it in a start 9. Again, I value quarterback very heavily, which is why I'm going to lean that side. But at the same time, like AJ Brown on a contending team, like you're solidifying your wide receiver core too. Can't get too mad.
Yeah, for sure. Ryan says may not make sense to do this with a 60-second clock, but thoughts on doing a startup with trades? I mean, if you're just asking like, should we do startups with trades and like longer clocks? Always slow draft. Yes, 100%. But if you're asking, can we do a video where we're doing a startup mock draft with trades with a longer clock? I suppose we could, and just like do a long recording of it with like 5-minute clocks and then just kind of edit it down to like a stomachable video or whatever. We could always do that. We also potentially wanted to plan maybe doing a live startup draft with you guys, and that would obviously not have a clock to it because we'd all be in person. But that would be a lot of fun if we're able to do that. So I'm actually on the clock yet again. Have we had any rookie picks taken yet?
We had 204, 205. You took the 205. Xavier Legette 206 went off the board. That's the only difference.
So I'm actually I want to take one last look at my prospect rankings. By the way, if you guys are Flock Fantasy site subscribers, we do have our prospect rankings live on the site right now. That has now been updated. I think we only had 2 running backs go off the board, correct?
Yeah, you took one of them.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna actually take another one instead of going out to the veteran running back pool. I am gonna grab another kicker here, and I'm gonna take Braylon Allen.
And I'm gonna go with your boy right off the bat, Mr. Mike Evans here at the 10-11 is very nice.
Yeah. So the way I've built out my team so far is like it's kind of a like contending shell, but I have like a very young running back core, and I'm hoping to maybe fill out my running back core a little bit more with some veterans. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy with how this team has developed because all my wide receivers are in their prime. Like Marvin Harrison will be in his prime immediately because he's Marvin Harrison. But AJ Brown, Brandon Ayuk, and T. Higgins, those guys are all kind of in their prime years right now. So I really like building around those guys with young players, and Trevor Lawrence and Will Levis, both young quarterbacks, maybe not quite in their primes, but definitely still guys that could be very productive as soon as this year.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go with another old fart because, they're falling pretty far in this draft. I'll take Keenan Allen at 11 too.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I was going to take him if you didn't. It's wild to me that Keenan Allen went, and honestly, I didn't see him. I should have taken him over Braylon Allen. That was kind of dumb. Both him and Evans probably in a vacuum definitely would have taken those guys. I am glad I waited at quarterback for my third guy because Geno Smith at the 11th I will take that all day. Do I want to take Geno Smith in the 5th round of a startup when quarterbacks are flying off the board fast and furious? He's a middle-class quarterback that's not a difference maker. Hell the fuck no. But do I want to take Geno Smith at the 11th round because I took, Trevor Lawrence and Will Levis, who are a little bit more volatile, ergo I want to have a better quarterback 3? Then yes, that's when I'm willing to take a guy like that.
Yeah, and for the record, if JJ McCarthy had fallen back to my 11th round pick, I just would have taken him. But he does go on that turn. Thought people might have forgotten about him, but I did applaud the pick in the sleeper chat. But
sleeper ADP is so annoying. Eventually, it'll correct itself here. I love the Stroud team and I love the Herbert team. So Suplad has been auto drafting, so that's funny that you love his team. But he does have like a pretty decent like win now contender. I don't love the Eckler and Chubb picks, but
I would have went with at least one more wide receiver in that.
Yeah, mix, QJ pick makes no fucking sense given the context of his team, but he's auto drafting. So shout out to Suplad. Joins the draft and then auto drafts the whole thing. Like if you're gonna auto draft, don't take up a spot so somebody else can.
Yeah.
And then Justin Herbert's Chan Hughes team. Chan's he's a veteran in these streets here. Justin Herbert, Bijan Robinson, Chris Olave. I believe 408 was that Neighbors, I think.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't Neighbors. That was Bowers. Bowers. So that's a hell of a nice looking team. Cup was just kind of a value pick by the looks of it because the rest of your team is pretty young, but I don't mind this team at all. And he's kind of just, since the Cup pick kind of pivoted towards more of like a contending build with Pollard and Kamara falling. Kamara at the 11-5 is somebody that I really considered over Geno as well.
I considered him over Keenan Allen, as funny as that sounds, but just felt better about the wide receiver. I think Chan obviously sharp guys in a lot of our leagues, so he's got a good head on his shoulders, so he knows what he's doing here. Solid squad.
Yeah, RVL says, how closely do these tight end premium mock drafts compare to tiered PPR? Also, speaking of Chan, that's all he plays in. Half, full, and 1.5. Which format provides, in your minds, the most parity across positions? I don't like half for running backs because I think it makes running backs totally like replacement level.
Well, like the way we're kind of at this point is people already value wide receivers in majority of markets. Like once you get into a lot of these dynasty startups, like you'll see a lot of wide receivers get pushed up the board. A lot of running backs get pushed up the board. Part in hand to, us making videos on why you shouldn't take running backs early. But I feel like Corey said, if you even dial it back a little bit more and make it so that running backs and wide receivers also have a 0.5 point disparity between receptions. Like Corey says, it just kind of waters down the running back position to where everybody's going to be doing zero RB because there's really no point on prioritizing the positional value.
Yeah. So, if anything, I would actually say tiered PPR should be half to wide receivers and full to running backs. But then you run into the issue then that if the running back doesn't catch passes, he's going to be useless.
Yeah, no. And the other issue is it also diminishes wide. We're at the point where maybe
but we kind of need to diminish wide receivers a little bit because everybody,
rewarding first downs. I feel like rewarding first downs is probably the best way to do it. Like we
Yeah,
did in
I
our
agree. I
redraft
think if
league.
you're gonna try and buff the running back position and make it a little bit more valuable, rewarding first downs is the way to do it, which we did in my home league this year in redraft, and I
It's
actually
fun.
really enjoyed the format.
Even in our listener league, just having that little added bonus of, hey, I have Isaiah Pacheco. Maybe I can't rely upon him to get me 7 receptions today, but if he's turning the chains for 4 first downs, 5 first downs, and I'm getting added points to that, like it adds value to like the true running back, if you will. Like, I say that in quotes because people like will say, "Well, an Austin Eckler like is bad because he's so good in fantasy, yet so not as good in real life." But having that value of like a Josh Jacobs or like an Isaiah Pacheco or like what Prime Zeke was doing, where you just got like that prototypical bell cow that can get some first downs, is a lot of fun. And you
Damn
got
it,
sniped on
Xavier!
someone.
You guys were about to witness a first in this.
Oh,
In this
no
game. I
way.
was gonna take Joe Mixon if he fell to me.
Wait, you're back in?
I was back in. I was gonna
Back
take
in
him.
on Joe Mixon, baby.
I was literally
Yeah.
gonna draft Joe Mixon if he fell to me.
Yep. Who were the other rookie picks that went off, by the way? So Tez Walker, Blake Corum, and JT Sanders. So can you read that off for me from JJ? That was 208, 209 to 211, please.
Yeah, 209 was Blake Corum, 210 was Jatavian Sanders, tight end from Texas, and then 211 was Devontae Walker, wide receiver from North Carolina. I'm just gonna look at my rookie rankings real quick because I don't want to.
We're on the
I'm gonna
212.
make sure I'm not forgetting anybody. One guy that I've gotten kind of high on based just on building my model. I haven't actually
I
watched
know who it is. I know who it is,
graded him,
100%.
but
feel like I
there's
know who
two
it
guys
is.
actually. One guy
Running
is
back?
Bucky Irving,
Yeah.
and the other guy is Audric Estime, both of whom are kind of good profiles based on what they've done so far, kind of on paper. The one that I'm actually going to end up going, actually, you know what? I'm going to veer for a veteran first and kind of see what falls back to me. So I'm going to cuck the shit out of Danny right now because I know he wants Aaron Jones, and I'm going to take him.
Well, screw you then. I'm just going to go with Bucky Irving.
That's fine. That's why I said I'll take whatever one falls back to me.
If you get one falling back.
Yeah, I mean, the disadvantage, of course, being that you guys are literally all watching this and you could just take Audric Estime, but...
And I picked twice before you.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. I mean, there's still a lot of good veteran wide receivers on the board, too. And even, I mean, I'm not a huge Treylon Burks. Like, let me ask you this. What are we doing with Treylon Burks, Jameson Williams, like these guys that are like, in theory, could be the next Nico Collins if things broke right for them, but also not in theory, might just not be good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been heart-struck by Elijah Moore to the point where, like, we kind of just gotta move on. It's kind of where I'm at with it. You kind of just gotta move on.
And I mean, even Nico Collins last year, like, yeah, he was a third-year breakout receiver this year, but like, say Chris Godwin or a couple other like third-year breakout wide receivers, if you look at the peripherals of Nico Collins last year, they were good. And we don't have any really good peripherals to go off of with Jameson Williams and Treylon Burks and stuff.
If CJ Stroud was walking
anything other than role players for the rest of their careers.
If CJ Stroud was walking through the door for either of them, I would be a little bit higher. But at this point,
I mean, you could maybe make the argument that Will Levis is going to develop into a great quarterback, and that would help out Treylon Burks.
Yeah,
maybe he learned some things from DeAndre Hopkins too.
So 212, by the way, Bucky Irving, and then 301 Audric Estime.
So you're just doing that to spite me, I see.
I mean, I would have taken Aaron Jones with one of them, but that plan kind of didn't happen.
That's fine. I think that's fine. Xavier Legette's off the board, right? We're not trolling.
Yes. Oh, dude, I would have taken him. Yeah.
Xavier Legette's off the board. We do have both other Washington wide receivers still available in this rookie draft. I don't think anybody's taken Polk or Jalen McMillan. I'm looking at the board right now. Do I like any of these running backs, these veteran running backs? That's kind of where I'm looking. Quarterback, too. I want to see if there's anybody. I mean, Russell Wilson's semi-interesting at this point in the draft.
Hear me out, by the way. You were talking about profiles that are relatively interesting. At running back, there's another one, but I have no clue where this guy's draft capital is going to be. So I'll let you make your pick, and then we could talk about him in a little bit. But I feel like you'll know the name when I bring it up.
Are you talking about Jalen Wright?
Talking about Jalen Wright. I'm
gonna actually take Jalen Polk here, so that's gonna be my selection.
I like it. The fact that you clicked into, you knew. Yeah, Jalen Wright's profile is really interesting. You look at his PFF grade, you look at his elusiveness, you look at his overall production, his efficiency. Like, you would put it up there with some of the better running backs in the country. The only problem is, where the hell is this guy going to go in the NFL draft? Like, if this guy was guaranteed to be a day 2 pick, I think he should be a top 15 overall pick in Superflex leagues.
Well, yeah, and I think he also has kind of a little bit of stink on him because I think his like career high in carries was like 165 too. So
Yeah.
he's also not the type of guy that's carried a big workload. But I mean, we're arguing potentially that Trey Benson might be the best running back in this class, and he's never carried a big workload either. So, and we've seen from guys like Alvin Kamara and Josh Jacobs and a number of other guys coming out of the NFL draft that it's not always the best thing to have a lot of tread on your tires. Like when you have no tread on your tires, sometimes it means you're going to have a long, productive career. So, but yeah, Jalen Wright is, I say this as like technically a compliment, but it could be construed as a negative on Jalen Wright. He's this year's Eric Gray for me, where when I was doing the model last year and I was doing the draft class databases, Eric Gray was standing out to me as a guy that actually performed pretty well in a lot of the metrics. And then I watched his film and I was like, okay, these were kind of fugazi. But Jalen Wright, I haven't watched his film yet, so I have no idea if he actually looks good on film or not.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the thing.
He's 5'11", listed 210 pounds on the Tennessee website. He was born April 1st, 2003. So he's going to be barely 21 years old on draft night. So it's not like, I mean, Eric Gray was like 23 and a half years old also. So he was an older prospect.
Efficiency last 2 years. Efficient the last 2 years. This year had a receiving profile.
First in the NCAA this past year.
And he also had some receptions too. 22 receptions, 141 yards, 6.4 yards per reception. So you're seeing a little bit of versatility in that regard as well. So again, we're going to know more once we dive into the films of these guys. Like we're going to know a lot more about the wide receiver class at this point than we are at the running backs. It's just kind of the nature of we've watched basically the majority of the wide receivers at once at this point. But once we dig into some of these lower names at running back, I'm really curious to see who pops.
Yeah, and I mean, broken tackles plus missed tackles forced in this running back class. Marshawn Lloyd leads the class with 37.2%, according to Sports Info Solutions. Bucky Irving is second with 34.6%, and Jalen Wright is third with 31.6%. So also very elusive on his touches as well. So, I mean, when you just look at the boxes that these guys are checking, like no prospect at running back especially is going to be like perfect. Otherwise, we'd be talking them like Bijan Robinson era of, prospect land. But Jalen Wright also too, when you look at PFF pass blocking grade from this past year, 5th in the class too. So he also can stay on the field on all 3 downs because he's a good enough pass protector to do so. 100% pass blocking efficiency to go along with that grade. So, I mean, he's checking boxes. He's got size, he's got receiving ability, he's got explosiveness. We got to see how good of an athlete he is, obviously. But for the most part, I mean, I haven't watched his film yet. I have no idea really what he looks like on film, but he's checking some boxes. And that's basically what this process is about. January, February, it's gathering information on these prospects. And then when we watch the film, you get more information. And then the combine kind of rounds out that opinion.
Fun fact, by the way, I want to bring this up because it's just funny when I look at this. So these are 2 profiles from 2 running backs that were in their second years in college. So the first one, 156 carries, 1,058 rushing yards, 6.8 rushing yards per attempt, 5 rushing touchdowns. 31 catches, 299 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. So 8 touchdowns from scrimmage, about 1,400 yards from scrimmage overall. And what would that be? 187 total touches. This other running back, 130 carries, 910 yards, 7.0 yards per attempt with 9 rushing touchdowns, 24 catches, 261 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So if you're doing the math, about 1,300 yards from scrimmage, about 154 touches, and 10 touchdowns from scrimmage. Who are the 2 running backs I'm talking about?
I'm assuming one of them is Jalen Wright because we were just talking about him.
No. Bucky Irving was one of them.
Okay, Bucky Irving was one of them. The other one is Kyron Williams, let's say.
It's Devon Achane.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, actually, Kyron Williams was a workhorse at Notre Dame, so I should have known that it wasn't him. But yeah, no, that's fair for sure.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And again, like obviously, until you watch the film, you won't be able to.
Well, and I've watched a little bit of Bucky Irving because going into the summer, in summer scouting, I watched Bucky Irving because we expected him to be a pretty decent prospect, and he kind of represents a bit of like what we need to look for in these new school running backs because we're not getting the workhorses anymore. We just aren't. So we got to kind of look at these profiles like Bucky Irving and Kyron Williams and Devon Achane and Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit differently than we used to.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like the smaller running backs, 190, 195 pounders, like we have to evaluate where they land because if they land in the right spot, I'm willing to kind of override the small issue because I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs and Devon Achane are prime examples in the modern NFL. And by the way, Chuba Hubbard was a great pick because I was literally
that's why I grabbed him.
Yeah. So now I have to look who else I want here. Is there any other vet running backs that are pretty decent? Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I could look at like a Mike Williams, someone like that. I don't know what rookies we're on at this point, but just gonna take a look. Tight end, like Darren Waller's not horrible. Luke Musgrave, tight end. Is there like Jake Ferguson available? Is he gone?
Spicy asking me,
Jake
we
Ferguson
were
is gone.
behind the curtain here. We were going to do some playoff best ball drafts. The gauntlet and the mitten returns contests are live on Underdog right now. So if you guys didn't get a chance to get some playoff best ball in the first round, when the gauntlet and the mitten and all that stuff were going on, but you still want to get some stake in the action, and maybe you watched and observed kind of what happened in round one, and you kind of understand playoff best ball a little bit better now, because of what happened in the wildcard round, I would highly suggest getting involved in some of those drafts. And we are going to be live streaming those. I would say, Spicy, you said you were free tomorrow. I would say let's do it tomorrow instead of later tonight, because we're already doing a live stream right now. So we could maybe do those tomorrow. And then on Saturday, we want to drop our wide receiver review from this past year, like we did with the running back position.
Yeah. By the way, Xavier, who did you take with that pick? Because it says 303 Tez Walker, but he was already off the board.
Maybe he took Jalen Wright. We were talking about it for fucking 10 minutes.
I mean, I just plugged in Jalen Wright to 304, so hopefully that's not the case.
Well, I mean, if that is the case, he just pulled the Minnesota Vikings anyway, and he missed his pick because he didn't say which running back or which prospect he was going after.
I'm just going to go with Marshawn Lloyd, I guess. I'm just taking all the fucking potential day 2 running backs.
He said McMillan? No,
that's who he took. That's who he took.
Okay. He took Vinatieri there. I see.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a couple good prospects available. Jacob Cowing actually is the class leader in targets per route run in this class. So
I know Snoog likes him a lot.
Yeah, I know. I've seen a lot of people really like him. There's a lot of good tight ends on the board, veteran-wise, that I also kind of want to take here. Greg Dulcich is still on the board. I think he's definitely a good value. Just because this guy can't go undrafted, I refuse. I'm going to take a rookie pick here and go with Malachi Corley.
Yeah, I dig it. I thought about Corley at my last pick as well, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Malachi Corley, I'm very, very excited to see what he does at the Senior Bowl this week, because that's when the Deebo Samuel hype train started, and everybody is comparing Malachi Corley to Deebo Samuel because he leads this class in yards after catch per reception. He leads this class in missed tackles avoided after the catch. He's just explosive with the ball in his hand, and that's exactly what Deebo Samuel represents. So with Malachi Corley, I'm really interested. And for what it's worth, too, the Senior Bowl in general this year is quite loaded in terms of actual talent.
You've seen the quarterbacks on either side, right?
Yeah, well, we got Nix, we got Penix, we got
Nix versus Penix.
Yeah, Nix versus Penix is what we got. And like at running back and wide receiver, we got much better. Let me actually look at the Senior Bowl invitees list right now, because I used it to develop the databases, because I want to make sure I wasn't missing anybody. And I looked around and I'm like, holy crap, we actually have some like pretty good prospects here. Let me look at the running backs. I know Marshawn Lloyd is one of them, the running backs that we have. We also have Dylan Laub or Loeb. I don't know how to say his name, but he actually has performed pretty well in the models too. He's a small school guy from New Hampshire, but he's pretty elusive. He's caught 88 passes this year, or he had 88 targets, this year. He had 66 catches. Jeez. This Dylan Laub guy, and he's got good size too. He's not just a scat back. So I was pleasantly surprised by him when I was actually building out the models. Cody Schrader is like really old. That's Missouri. He's actually a graduate student. He's not even like a senior or like a redshirt senior. He's like doing his master's. So he's definitely like an older prospect. So we don't love that, but he actually was like their whole offense this year. So maybe he's kind of interesting, and he's got some size to him.
I know their quarterback got a little bit of buzz too. I forget his name. Oh my God. I'm trying to remember this. Who the fuck was the Mizzou quarterback? I'm looking now. Quarterback. Brady Cook. I know he was getting a lot of hype too.
Yeah. So, okay, this Dylan Laub guy, listen to this. Leads the class with an 86.2 PFF receiving grade, 88 targets this year, 68 receptions for 700 yards, over 10 and a half per catch. And he's commanded a 19.1% target share. Ironically, the reason 19.1 sticks out in my head is that is precisely the target share that Rachaad White had coming out of Arizona State. That everybody was very excited about. So, and a 1.96 yards per route run, that's better than Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah, that's fucked.
Who's a receiver. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy of how good he's been. as a
So
receiving back. I don't know a
what?
whole lot about him. I can't really get my hands on New Hampshire tape right now, but I'm curious to see what this guy does at the Senior Bowl, because that's kind of the reason the Senior Bowl was made, was for small school guys.
You're talking about Cody Schrader?
No, I'm talking about Dylan Laub from New
Oh,
Hampshire.
Dylan Laub. Okay, right. Sorry, I thought you were talking
Yeah,
about.
and Kamani Vidal from Troy has also performed pretty decent in my stuff here. And Jalen Wright, the aforementioned, also going to be at the Senior Bowl as well, as is Ray Davis, who I've seen from Kentucky people hype up a little bit as well.
I know he's gotten a lot of buzz.
At the Senior Bowl at wide receiver, we have Xavier Legette and Devontae Walker, who both I think will be second-round picks, if not maybe higher. Malachi Corley, I think, has a chance to be like a second or third round NFL draft pick. Roman Wilson has a decent chance because he won the national championship, went to a big school. Lad McConkey, you guys know I love me some Lad McConkey. He is going to be at the Senior Bowl as well. Brendan Rice, Jacob Cowing, like I said. Luke McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey's brother, played quarterback for a couple of years at Nebraska, switched to wide receiver at Rice.
He was very efficient this year too.
I've really good year too.
Seen him pop on PFF metrics too. He was a really good graded receiver. I'm glad you mentioned Roman, by the way. I just gonna give a little bit of the Go Blue insight here. I think he's going to be a day one slot. Now, depending on how valuable he'll be in fantasy, I don't think he'll be anything more than like probably a wide receiver 3-4 in the best spot. But I can see him being a guy that gets taken at the end of round 3 that you can pigeonhole right into that slot receiver role right off the bat. Really nuanced player, good with the ball in his hands. And we've seen multiple times at Michigan him be able to track deep. I mean, the play that really gets in my head is the one that wasn't called a touchdown, because in the NCAA rules, when your butt hits the ground, you're ruled down, whereas in the NFL, you have to get touched down. That was a play in TCU. Uncovers on that deep post, catches it on the half-inch line, rolls into the end zone, and then the next play, Mullings fucking fumbled against TCU on the 1-yard line. Yeah,
I mean, when I look at the Senior Bowl wide receiver list, I see Lad McConkey, Xavier Legette, and Devontae Walker as all guys that could be top 50 NFL draft picks.
Yes.
Malachi Corley, Jamari Thrash, Johnny Wilson, Brendan Rice, Jacob Cowing, Aniyah Smith, Roman Wilson, all could be, third,
late
fourth
day
rounder.
2, early day 3.
And then like I said, Luke McCaffrey, kind of interesting. Aniyah Smith, kind of interesting from Texas A&M. Jordan Whittington, as a Texas fan, I can tell you he's also going to be a day one slot for somebody as well. Lot of good options at the wide receiver position at the Senior Bowl. Tight end group kind of sucks. I mean, this class isn't good outside of Brock Bowers and Jatavian Sanders. But yeah, the running back class, the quarterback class, and the wide receiver class. Spencer Rattler also supposed to be there at the quarterback position. He's kind of interesting, I suppose. Well,
so you mentioned the name Aniyah Smith, and I'm just looking at his college resume, and it's like probably the funniest thing I've ever seen. Because this guy's first year,
I swear to God, Aniyah Smith, I evaluated him for like the 2021 draft. I feel like he's been in college for 10 years.
So fun fact about him, right? So his second year, how many carries do you think this guy got in his second season?
I think he played running back for his first 2 years, no?
For reference, so in his first 2 years, so overall in his career, he had 64, 67. He had 72 total carries in his career in 5 seasons. He had 49 of those in a single year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and he was pretty efficient, man. 6 yards per carry, 4 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that is wild here. Who was that other running back with the ACL? That's Jonathan Brooks, Office Depot from Texas. He would be absolutely the RB1 in this class. By the way, if anybody is unaware about Jonathan Brooks, because people might be like, oh, is he like an older prospect? He was stuck behind Bijan Robinson at Texas. Nope. He was literally born July 21st, 2003. He's a redshirt sophomore. He's not even going to be 21 years old on the day of the draft. So that's great news for him. Because at first when I saw him, I like remembered him. I was like, oh, have we had this guy for like a couple of years? Like, no, not really. Like we have, but he hasn't really been, doing too much. Connor Seed asked us this: for Dynasty decisions, I'm a Flocker tier member, showed proof and clicked on the Flocker member choice, but didn't use a promo code FSC anywhere. Am I good to resubmit with code? Yeah, I would resubmit, Connor, with a code in the in the thing there. So again, appreciate you guys for joining us. Let's go over our teams real quick, and then we'll hop out of here.
Yeah, man. Let's look through some of these teams, and I will get this down. So, starting with Bolocks, you do see Josh Allen, Jordan Love, and Tyreek Hill occupy his first 3 rounds. Now, obviously, with the third round reversal, you're not going to be getting that classic 212, 301 turn. So, maybe a guy like AJ Brown, maybe a guy like I don't know, the rookie 104 probably would have been the pick. But looking at here, getting those two quarterbacks, I really love that start. Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, given that it's the 3-12-401, I also really like that as well. Only difference, maybe you could have convinced me to take maybe a Devon Achane, but the fact that you got Kyron Williams at the 5-12 also makes it so that I really like how you played these first 5 rounds. You got your 2 wide receivers, you got your 2 quarterbacks, and you got an alpha anchor number 1 running back there with Jade.
I don't
Kyron
like
Williams.
the Jaden Reed pick is the only thing.
A little bit early for me too.
No, I don't think it's early. I think that's about where he should be going. I just don't think it fits the context of your team.
That's what I mean.
Have like a winner, like a win now type of build. I might have gone Kyron and Rashad White back to back there, to be honest, and then forego Javonte at the 7-12 and instead taken Christian Watson or Calvin Ridley, or even like I don't even think it'd be too early to be taking a guy like Mike Evans at that point in time.
I mean, if we're talking about like potentially getting a win now player added to this team that really would have helped, Mark Andrews was staring you in the face.
Oh, yeah. Andrews. Yeah, that would have definitely been a very viable pick as well.
Yeah. So there, Javonte, again, a little bit concerned there. Like if we're playing opportunity bundle, I would much rather have Rashad White plus any of those 7th round or 8th round receivers. So if we're looking like, I would rather have Rashad White and Amari Cooper than I would Jaden Reed and Javonte Williams. Is kind of where I'm at.
Me too. I don't think Javonte's 7-12 is bad. I just don't think I would take him quite where
context of the team
in terms of context of the team. But Danny, if you want to go over your team, we'll just, if anybody wants us to specifically break down their team, we will, but let's just cover our teams here.
Yeah, so I ended up getting CeeDee Lamb, Anthony Richardson, Dak Prescott. That I honestly think that's about as perfectly as I could have played the first 3 rounds. If I was going to take a wide receiver in the first, getting Anthony Richardson and Dak Prescott at the 2-3, I really, really like where I was left off there.
Don't do that if it's not 3RR, I would imagine, because you're not going to get a good quarterback falling back to you after Richardson.
Correct. In a non-3RR, maybe you convince yourself, okay, I want to go with 102 there maybe instead of CeeDee Lamb because you're scared about the quarterbacks coming off, or maybe even Kyler Murray. But yeah, in a 3rd round reversal, easy knowing that Dak Prescott was most likely making it back, and if not, Brock Purdy could have, Jordan Love could have. I felt comfortable making that CeeDee Lamb pick at the 111. So I like those first 3 rounds. Nico Collins at the 411. You could convince yourself about a couple of the wide receivers in that spot, but regardless, I think it's a very flat tier. Get Devon Achane at the 5-2. I'm not going to lie. I think the reason why he fell to me was mostly due to him being buried in terms of the names on the board. Because I have to imagine if he was one of the top names, he probably would have been off the board sooner than the 5-2. So really like that value. George Pickens there at the 6'11", top 24 wide receiver for me. Do get sniped on Mark Andrews, but I think that's a nice young wide receiver, especially as my 3rd option here. George Kittle, contending team tight end, 1.5 premium. Don't really have to explain that. And in terms of the other vets, Matthew Stafford, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, all really good, high-performing vets that can produce points for me right off the bat, like their values. And in terms of the rookie picks, I believe that was Adonai Mitchell at the 8-11. And then I closed off with 4 straight running backs there. I don't know which order, but it was Jalen Wright, it was Bucky Irving, it was Audric Estime, and it was, who was the other running back I went with? Marshawn Lloyd. So those are the final 4 running backs I went with. So overall, really happy with how the team turned out. Could make the case about some micro analysis things that you guys would prefer as opposed to the players I took, but pretty happy with the structure of this team.
Yeah, it's not bad. If you look at my team, I will say like the one thing I'm not really excited for is because we literally did this on the basis of the league rules and the league settings that of the startup draft that I have this week. I really hope I'm not forced to take Trevor Lawrence at 110. I really don't think I need to. I think I easily could have gotten him in the 2nd round. So what I'm hoping happens in my actual startup draft is Caleb Williams slides to me at 110, or even like a Herbert or a Burrow or something were to slide to me down there, because I don't want to be forced to take Trevor Lawrence. And I think honestly, because I have the startup coming up soon, I might experiment with taking a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson there, and then taking Lawrence or somebody in the 2nd round, whatever quarterback I want to go with, and see kind of what happens in round 3. Because it's a 3-round reversal, knowing that I can get, let's say I went Justin Jefferson with my Jamar Chase with my 110, and then I get Trevor Lawrence to fall back to me at the 203, maybe one of Purdy, Dak, Jordan Love, somebody like that would have fallen to me in the 3rd round. Or like I said, when I was building this team, maybe I just roll with Lawrence as my anchor quarterback like this, except instead of anchoring with Marvin Harrison at wide receiver, I'm anchoring with Jamar Chase.
Yeah, and I mean, not to mention too, Drake May does go before your pick here. Hypothetically, if the 102 there was Marvin Harrison on that turn, and that was Drake May. Like, what would have been your thoughts there comparatively if that was Drake instead of Marv?
Yeah, I personally wouldn't take Drake quite that high.
Okay.
Just knowing that I personally, like, when I just look at the quarterback landscape, I would take Kyler Murray, Jordan Love over Drake May right now,
Yeah.
as of right now. Like,
Yeah,
I'm assuming he's going to go to Washington. That's probably what team he's going to go to. But I personally slightly prefer those guys. So if Drake were to have fallen to me at 3-3, where I took AJ Brown, I think that would have been fine. But I don't think I would have taken him quite at the 2-3 there.
So for reference, in terms of my rankings, where the 102/103 would fall in. So I have them back to back as my 11th and 12th overall assets. So in terms of quarterback, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes are my 1-2, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. And then it would tear off after Joe Burrow to the rookie 101, because I would take Caleb Williams ahead of Anthony Richardson and Kyler Murray. Those two would be next. Then it would be Drake May / Marvin Harrison at the 1-2-1-3. And then right after them, it would be Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, the 104, then Tua, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I mean, I also could have foregone Trevor Lawrence as well. Or if I would have gone with Trevor Lawrence, I could have gone Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, or something like that, or Drake May if he had fallen. He didn't actually end up falling here because the TKR took him at 2-1. So yeah, number of different ways I could have gone there. AJ Brown, Ayuk, Higgins, those guys anchor my wide receiver core. Falling value on Mark Andrews, love that. Will Levis in the 7th round, I'm willing to take the upside swing on Will Levis. He could be a 2nd or a 3rd round starter pick this time next year, given his arm talent and mobility. And I've seen enough from Will Levis in Tennessee to say that I think I'm bullish on him, at least at this price tag. And then my rookie picks here, I believe that was Xavier Worthy, Trey Benson, and I don't remember who the last guy was. Malachi Corley was the last rookie pick. Jalen Polk, the one before that. Braylon Allen was the guy after Trey Benson as Greg Zuerlein there. And then I grabbed the falling value on Geno Smith as my 3rd quarterback. Aaron Jones and Chuba Hubbard were just vet running backs that I thought were good values.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, by the way. So Will Levis, I remember I actually took him in our Devy League last year. And what a roller coaster of a season, because at the early portion, I was like, okay, like what's going on here? Like, did I spend too high of a pick? All the way until the end when he was showing those glimpses, I'm like, oh, like I probably just got him at a value. So I got him at the 705 in that draft room. And I remember when I made the pick, everybody was like, oh, that feels a little bit early, but we're looking at it now. And that's literally where he's going to find his ADP a year on out. And again, I feel a lot better about the projection moving forward, given the glimpses he showed this year versus even coming into the year.
Yeah, for sure. So Daniel asks if we can break down his team. Let's go to that one here. He has Mahomes, Puka Nacua. He also lists his rookie picks here for us.
Jane Daniels.
105 was Jaden Daniels. 106 was Rome Odunze. Matt Gay there at 8-2 was Ladd McConkey. Then he had Jatavian Sanders with his next rookie pick there. And then he says 3 whatever was Will Shipley. So we'll just give him Will Shipley there. But I mean, looking at the way he structured his team long term, you'd have Mahomes and Jaden Daniels as your quarterback, Nacua, Rome Odunze, Zay Flowers as your top receivers, Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know if I would have gone with Pacheco specifically. Rachaad White, I think, was a fine value, so I'm cool with that. But Pacheco specifically, I might have gone with a wide receiver value there, maybe. But like, it's not like the board was like ripe with great wide receivers at that point in time. So I don't know. That's the only pick I maybe have a little bit of qualms with. At tight end, Ferguson and Michael Mayer, I think, is a fine group to build around. And you also, I guess, took Jatavian Sanders. Because you took Sanders, I probably wouldn't have taken all 3 of those guys. But I did say, like, this is my strategy at tight end this year. Like, just load up on, like, Ferguson, Michael Mayer, and Jatavian Sanders. Like, you're going to have one of those guys hit. I'm pretty confident to say that. So you're probably going to be good at tight end. I probably would have just maybe only taken 2 this early and then taken maybe 2 more in, like, the 15th to 18th round area if we had gone that long.
And I'm kind of adding to it. I'm not going to lie. Ferguson having the game that he did in the last game of the season for the Cowboys does a little bit bother me, because now everybody's going to be starting to realize, okay, maybe this guy's like a legit face on this Cowboys team moving forward. Kind of felt like for a while, like when I was ahead on the Jake Ferguson hive, everybody's like, oh yeah, we got to wait and see like what's the ultimate upside here. And I think a lot of people now are starting to realize, like, dude, like this is the number 2 pass catcher in the offense that I want moving forward in Dynasty. Easily.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Maybe, maybe they add somebody in the draft, but for now, yeah, it's got to be the takeaway for sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm really impressed. Listing that they want us to break down the team. But overall, Daniel, I think you did a pretty good job of building out like a young and balanced kind of contender there. What is this Kaiser that we're looking at? Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray. That is a banging start. Dude.
I love that
start.
With neighbors.
1.5 Jalen Hurts for starters and 2.8 Kyler Murray. You got a great value on both of those players.
Yep.
Then it looks like you stack up Kyler Murray with potentially his number one wide receiver in Malik Neighbors. Cool. I believe that's a match made in heaven. And you double stack him up with Trey McBride. So you got the Arizona Cardinals offense going there. Rashee Rice at the 5.8, I thought was a tremendous value. I really, really considered taking him over T. Higgins at the 5.3. That was like a, splitting hairs type of situation for me. But because
Same with me and Nico.
Yeah, same exactly. I mean, because I had Ayuk and AJ Brown already, who are like in their prime receivers, T. Higgins made a little bit more sense for my build. James Cook and Josh Jacobs, I think that's fine value on both of those guys. Yeah, like it doesn't feel great taking James Cook at the 6.5, but again, the running back position is just so like disgusting that it's like, yeah, it's probably about where you should go. I think I'll forego guys like James Cook and take running backs later, but I think it's a fine value on James Cook.
Yeah, I would agree. The way I'm kind of playing it at this point is once you get to a certain area at running back, I'm just kind of punting towards rookie picks. The reason being is that although there isn't necessarily a strong rookie class, you're still going to have guys that are going to go on day 2. There's still going to be guys that if they do go on day 2, they're probably going to be top 20 overall running backs in the dynasty landscape. So it just kind of feels like a easy appreciability at this point where if you're drafting rookie picks, if the running backs go high, you take the running backs and know that they're going to be a higher ranking in terms of dynasty. If the running backs don't go high, well, hey, I still got the rookie pick. Maybe I'll take my favorite wide receiver at that spot. Maybe I'll, trade it for a pick next year. So in drafts where I can draft rookie picks at this point, I would venture towards that instead. But again, James Cook is still going to be a top 15 overall dynasty running back in rankings. Josh Jacobs, same thing, top 15 overall dynasty running back in rankings. But
Swift,
either way,
overkill, I probably go with a rookie pick at that spot with Swift.
Yeah, I would agree.
Or a wide receiver. The wide receiver position was kind of dried up, so I'm fine even just going with a rookie pick there, or taking a guy like Baker Mayfield even too. I might have gone with over DeAndre Swift there.
He did get Derek Carr, so I'm not too mad about that. The only thing maybe is instead of Derek Carr and DeAndre Swift, you're looking at a value bundle of Baker Mayfield and Joe Mixon. I probably would rather that, or even if you don't like Joe Mixon,
Mike Evans and Keenan Allen are both on the board too. You could have gone with either of those guys.
That is very fair as well. I didn't.
Evans and Keenan Allen were way too low. They should have been like 8th or 9th round picks, to be honest.
By the way, if we played IDP, we would incorporate them. The unfortunate part is we don't do IDP analysis because we don't play an IDP. But I want to point it out. Shout out Brett, Danny. Let's go, Brett. I think I said it earlier, but I had to point it out again.
Yeah, TKR asked if we want to break down his team, and this will be the last one that we actually go through, and then we'll sign off of here. But Sam says, break down mine, please. Please, I had 112, picked 102 May. So Jamar Chase, Drake May to kick things off, and then Brock Purdy at the 3 RR there. Not bad. I think Purdy was my next rated quarterback. I actually think I slightly prefer AJ Brown, and I just would have liked to start the draft with Jamar Chase, Drake May, and AJ Brown, but I think Brock Purdy was a fine pick there. Tank Dell and Michael Pittman staying in the AFC South. Saquon at 6.12, pretty solid value there again. David Njoku at 7.1. I don't really love the Montgomery pick at 8.12. I think I would have preferred to go with a wide receiver like a Marquise Brown or something like that at that point in time. I don't remember what the
rookie pick.
Yeah, I mean, I took Xavier Worthy, I think, at the Jason Sanders.
I took A.D. Mitchell.
Yeah, so off the board there, you probably would have had you would have definitely had like Xavier Legette, Lad McConkey, I think. So I probably would have gone in that direction, but the other picks, he went with 204 Jonathan Brooks. Actually, McConkey went.
Question I have for you here.
Ignore that part.
Question I have for you here. In this spot, knowing that you would have to take Montgomery at the 8.12, because it's technically, it doesn't have to be Drake May, it's the rookie pick. Would you instead, because you have the 102, knowing that it could either be Harrison or May, would you take a Stafford here?
Maybe, yeah. I think Stafford would have made some sense. I also think too, I think Baker went too low, man. 9.12 Baker Mayfield, I'm telling you guys as a Bucs fan, we're gonna offer him like a Geno Smith level contract.
3 years, $95 million. I can see.
Yeah, absolutely. So why is Baker Mayfield at 28 years old or however old he is, 29 years old, going at the 9.12 at this point in time when he has the weapons he has? I think the Bucs will add to the offense too. I think there's a chance that we spend a first or a second round pick on a wide receiver. It's definitely possible that Baker's going way too low. But I mean, looking at the team, I think he did a really good job. Jalen McMillan at 306, McCarthy at 208 is also really good value. RB1, Jonathan Brooks, also really good value. So Sam, I think you did a good job building this one. Your team makes sense. You got a young team developing,
correlated too,
which is ready to compete in a year or two.
Yeah, it's correlated because a lot of times I'll see like people will hop on, people will do their mock drafts and they'll say, okay, like, what do you think of our teams? And for the most part, people that have been following, like, especially the ones that hop into this draft, you'll see a lot of correlated teams. But a lot of people that start out in Dynasty, they'll grab, one pick, this 22-year-old second-year player, and then the next pick, you're grabbing a 32-year-old veteran. And at that point, it's like, your team isn't correlated at all. Like, what direction do you want to go? That's why we'll always preach. If you're kind of drafting a certain way, if you're drafting to win now, draft the players that will, A, not lose a ton of value, but B, also be able to give you the production. And inverse, if you're drafting a house money, 1-year punt type of team, you shouldn't be taking a Keenan Allen unless Keenan Allen falls at the depth that he did in this draft. You shouldn't be taking a DK Metcalf over a Rashee Rice, hypothetically. That's just a random example. Obviously, Xavier building more of a win-now team with the quarterbacks, with the running back that he had. But the point is you'll see people just kind of, wing it in terms of the correlation. And our advice is always, if you're drafting a certain way, like, unless it's an egregious value that you could flip for profit, just kind of follow your same guideline, because there's a reason why players are falling in your drafts. People aren't stupid. Like, the main commonality that I'll have is we'll preach quarterback value. Then you'll see in some drafts quarterback value just not be at the level that we preach. So as a result, you'll see people take like 6, 7, 8 quarterbacks. Well, at that point is, if people are passing on these quarterbacks, it's going to be harder for you to get the valuation that you have them at.
Yeah, you're not just going to be able to sell them for what they're actually worth in your mind. Maybe one guy falls and everybody's like, oh, damn, I was waiting for that guy. And then at that point, maybe you could sell him. But if nobody's like, oh my God, all the quarterbacks are drying up, like it's difficult to do that. Last thing that we'll get to, it is the 1 hour and 30 mark. Appreciate you guys if you've stuck around all the way through. If you have, leave a like, all that good stuff. Subscribe if you're new around here. You says, should we use a 104 for trade bait, or is Neighbors really that good? Can confirm, having graded Malik Neighbors yesterday, he is absolutely really that good.
Yeah, and I'm finishing. So I've watched the 2 games so far. I'm going to be watching the third after we're done here. But I can tell you through the first 2, he's quite the special player. And I've already graded Marvin Harrison for the record. And let's just say Corey's explained where he has him at, but might be just as high, if not even a little bit higher. Like we got some special grades, some special talents in these wide receiver class.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of these dudes. I tweeted it out yesterday. A lot of traction picked up on that.
Unbelievable.
Tweet. 2021, the wide receivers that I've graded since then, Marvin Harrison is the highest graded receiver since then. So that includes Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, some of the great wide receivers we've had over the past couple of years. Marvin Harrison tops the cake and takes the cake. And for what it's worth, if I was going back to 2020, he would also have graded higher than any receiver in that class. And Malik Neighbors grades as the 4th highest receiver, or 3rd highest receiver, behind only Jamar Chase and Marvin Harrison. Devontae Smith and Malik Neighbors have the same grade on both of those players. Just absolutely elite talents. And this is why we say Neighbors, any other class last year, 2022, he would have been the top dog.
Yeah, and for reference, people might be saying, well, Devontae Smith, he's the number 2 for Philly. I know a lot of people just look at designation on a depth chart and think that's indicative of like what they are in the NFL. Devontae Smith is a top 10 NFL wide receiver. So if you're getting that type of comparison right there from Malik Neighbors in line with that, like, we're viewing this guy as a potential day 1 alpha number 1 wide receiver. Like, although Devontae Smith is technically the second in command to AJ Brown, he's a top 10 NFL wide receiver. If you put him in LA, if you put him in, X amount of places, he would be the number 1 player. And we think Malik Neighbors, both of us, can be that guy at the next level, whether that's going 3rd overall to the Patriots, 4th overall to the Cardinals, 5th overall to the Chargers.
Which is
about the range.
That's the nuts. We want him 5th overall to the Chargers. I think his floor is 6 to the Giants, probably.
I would agree. And I mean, like, even after that, like, if he starts falling 7, 8, 9, like, teams will trade up for him.
The Jets better get aggressive if that happens. The Jets better be aggressive if that happens, because they could for sure as shit use a deep threat like Malik Neighbors to go with Garrett Wilson. Last thing, Ryan does quickly ask for a breakdown of the 106. Let's do this rapid fire. Quickly, Ryan, I'm not going to go through every one of your individual picks. I don't love that you didn't stick to one strategy. When I look at your team, you took Caleb Williams with your first pick. That should have geared you towards building a rebuilding shell. You got young players, which is good. Laporte at 3.7 is fine. I wouldn't have taken 2 running backs with your first 4 picks. Especially not ETN. Brees is a little bit younger, but ETN especially, he's a win now running back. I know he's only 24 years old, but that's 27 in running back years pretty much. So I would have gone with more younger talent, knowing that you took Caleb Williams that high.
And I mean, adding to it, I mean, this is kind of going back to what I was pointing out about wanting your team to stay correlated. There isn't a lot of correlation with your team right now because you do have Caleb, you do have
Like
Brees, you
Bryce
have
Young and
Laporta.
Stephon Diggs back-to-back picks is very
Yeah,
uncorrelated. Like you got a young
exactly.
quarterback who's probably not going to be very fantasy relevant even as soon as this season, let alone, in the immediate future. Stephon Diggs has got like 1 or 2 more good years of production left in the tank. And you got a rookie quarterback as your QB1 and a second-year quarterback as your QB2, but all of your receivers are win-now
Yeah.
receivers. And it's difficult to win with a team like that. If you wouldn't intended, knowing the rooms that we have here, to win, you should have taken Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert with your first pick, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, you should like in that type of instance, maybe instead, because let's just say you're targeting Cousins later on in your draft. Don't take a Bryce Young. Maybe wait to see, okay, can I pair Kirk Cousins as Matthew Stafford, or can I pair Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield? Like maybe that's what you do at quarterback. And assuming, of course, like that's a Burrow or that's a Herbert in that spot. This kind of goes back to what I was saying, like I mentioned, the lack of correlation here, because you should have picked the strategy and stuck to it. It kind of feels like you're throwing darts at different boards, just trying to see what kind of sticks. And my advice is, if you were going to go young to start with this draft, stay young. Stay young. Like I understand Stephon Diggs is falling. I understand, Chris Godwin is falling. But at this spot, if you replace those picks with George Pickens and a rookie pick, that would have been much better suited towards the goal that you're trying to accomplish. On top of course, Travis Etienne maybe transitioning to a rookie pick as well.
You had a load of young receivers there. You could have gone with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, Jordan Addison, whatever you wanted to roll with there.
And I mean, like adding to that as well, when in doubt, just take a rookie pick. That's kind of where I'm at. If you're building this type of team where you're young at the top, you're maybe panicking on the clock. Oh my God, like I don't know where to go. Like which young player do I want to go with? Which player on the board do I want to go with? If you have a young shell, just you take that ambiguity out of it and just take the pick, because as we know, the picks are going to get more valuable in the cycle, and then maybe you'll have the opportunity when the 106 or the 107's on the clock to say, oh, listen, like this young wide receiver I wouldn't think would be available, this Nico Collins I wouldn't think would be available, is now available for this pick, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, of course, in an actual Dynasty startup, there would be trading. And speaking
Absolutely.
of which, if you guys, we're going to close this video out because we've been going on for a while now. But if you guys do want access to all of our Dynasty rankings, Superflex, one quarterback, trade calculator, all that stuff is available on flockfantasy.com. Coming very soon, I'm going to do an update to the Dynasty trade value chart, so that if you guys are in a startup draft and you have no idea what each pick is worth, you'll be able to allocate those values appropriately. If you're on the board and Trevor Lawrence is staring you in the face at 202, but you're like, hey, I'm not big on Trevor Lawrence, what should I be looking for in a trade down scenario? You can be like, hey, I'm going to trade down with the 212. I think I can get Puka Nacua there. See the difference between Trevor Lawrence and Puka Nacua on our trade value chart and hopefully make that up in a trade down situation. So if somebody's offering you 301 and a 2025 first for the Trevor Lawrence pick at 202, that's a great trade down. Or maybe they're only offering you, the 301 and they're 506 for your 202, then that's a great trade down as well, because that pick is worth about a first rounder in value.
Yeah, I mean, another example, just because I want to point it out, is somebody's willing to offer you something like that, like you take it. You take it. I just had to point that out because I saw this trade. You take it.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, appreciate you guys for joining us. Check out everything down below in the description, Underdog, Flock Fantasy, all that good stuff. We will be live probably tomorrow doing some more playoff best ball drafts, and then we should have one more video coming at you guys this week. Of course, I tweeted this out yesterday. I nearly purchased tickets to the Buccaneers and Lions game because it is literally in Detroit, and I'm like, dude, this is a playoff game. My football team's in it. It's close to my house. It's not winter in Ford Field because it's an indoor stadium. I was close to doing it. I'm not going to do it, but I was very close to doing it. But go Bucs, of course.
Yeah, I mean, at this rate, I have nothing else to root for. So go Bucks, and on the AFC side, go Bills. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, for sure. So take it easy, fellas. Peace out. We'll talk to you soon.